Hello my friends, I am the Dungeon Tutor. Welcome! Today, we've gotten to the 13th day of August, the 13th day of RPGaDay. And for that, we have a question: what is an RPG with evocative environments? Now, I could very easily have dipped back into yesterday's post talking about GUI Cube for their evocative environments, because again, the backdrops that they have to their adventure with all the handouts showing whatever the player characters are going to see is so incredibly evocative that it is the most immersive game I have ever played or run. But I have to admit, sometimes you have to take a nod back to the OG. The first people who really put a spin on evocative environments to the point that they practically pioneered the genre. That's a bit that's a lot of superlatives, but realistically, I think this is a well-deserved pick, and that is Call of Cthulhu by Chaosium. Now, Call of Cthulhu, for most people, when they think of horror in a role-playing game, Call of Cthulhu gets the nod. Yes, there are a ton of role-playing games out there involving horror, including others that use the Lovecraftian mythos, like Trail of Cthulhu and Achtung Cthulhu and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with those either, by dipping into the same playground. But when your product is single-handedly, for I say the vast majority of people who are aware of Chaosium and their products at all, for almost what they might consider the perfect setup. You have a cool time period, around 1920s-ish. You have a cool place, New England, always kind of a creepy place. I mean, you know, Patriots and stuff. Anyhow, you have, of course, Lovecraft and all of the monsters in that mythology. Eldritch horrors that mankind is not equipped to understand. But they are an inexorable foe. Inexorable, I can read. Okay, let's try this again. But with Call of Cthulhu, primarily what you get is a time period, the 1920s, close enough to be familiar, but still different enough that it just doesn't quite match today's standards and experiences so that it seems exotic. I mean, there's no internet, no cell phones. You are more isolated in this time period, and that is important for horror. You have the characters themselves, the understanding that they're not superhuman adventurers. They're not probably going to go and punch out a Byakhee or a Shoggoth. No, if you try to get into combat in Call of Cthulhu, more often than not, your character is going to be dead. Instead, your characters are investigators. You try to find information out. Even if it costs you your sanity, ultimately it's seen as a net win if you can use that knowledge to defeat the creeping horrors that are almost assuredly waiting to devour the souls of humanity, including everything that you love and cherish. It does a brilliant job of putting it in a locale where the mystical and the horrific seem possible and plausible. New England is beautiful landscape, but juxtaposing that with nighttime horrors is remarkably easy to imagine. And mist-shrouded beaches and deep forests, and yeah, you can kind of see that even though there is the civilized, there is the familiar, there's a lot of space where all these depraved things might be happening, or the slumbering creatures might be ready to come out at a moment's notice. The game itself is put together so that your characters never feel invincible. They always feel mortal. And that is important, because in the environment that you are put into, it's going to test that mortality. It'll fracture your character's mind, driving them to the brink of insanity, perhaps. Or just one good physical encounter that might leave them in a rough state will show you that your character is not invincible. Your character is a normal person caught in bad situations, bad circumstances. And how do you make the best of that? Is it necessarily even the best of it to survive it? Sometimes, no. Sometimes your character's just going to end up dying, but hopefully for a better cause. And sometimes they just die on the side of the road. It does happen in Call of Cthulhu. But as far as evocative, it's easy to pick at the dark corners of the mind if the person who is being told the story can imagine these places, can imagine the situation, the tension, the feeling. And Call of Cthulhu is a game that can deliver that. It has all of the elements to help you as a keeper run these adventures and prey upon your players' insecurities and let them build up just enough of a bit of hope, just enough of a bond to that which is being threatened so that they can experience some level of this horror. Now, that being said, can it be done badly? Yes, it is possible to run Call of Cthulhu without even really invoking much horror. You can do these mock Call of Cthulhu where more like a Scooby-Doo. You find out what appears to be weird mysteries are not all that weird, and there is an explanation for them, and it's not supernatural horror. It can be wonderful for a change of pace, for instance, on players that are really expecting to get chewed up and spit out. But, more often than not, it is a game about truly horrific things, on things that don't care about humanity at all, and just see us as food, perhaps, coming up against your character's sensibilities. And if you survive, it'll almost certainly be with scars from the experience. And that is cool. It's just cool. If you like horror at all, this stuff should excite you. For those people who don't like horror, if you give it just a chance, don't just cross your arms as like, my character feels nothing. I am hard. I am tough. Engage with it. Care. Let your character care about what's going on and feel through them exactly what the risk of loss is like. That's how you experience horror, by being in the horror. And that's kind of cool. That is, if you allow the environment to evoke thoughts and feelings in you. And if you do that, you're being a good player for that game. So, that's why I'm going to put this up as my pick for evocative environments. Call of Cthulhu has been freaking people out for decades now. It's a wonderful little game that Chaosium put together using the Cthulhu mythos. It absolutely gives you the possibility of thrilling your players with a great horror scenario. And that is because they build up on some pretty evocative, horrifying, although sometimes juxtaposition of beautiful as well, but environments that you can believe in, and that you can imagine, and that you can take part in. That's why that's my pick. So, I hope you like this video. If you do, and you find something of use in there, I hope that you like and subscribe to me, and think about notifying yourself when I make a video. If you know somebody who's looking for just that kind of thing, honestly, Call of Cthulhu, I think they're in their 8th edition now. They've really been refining this game for a long time, and it is beautifully horrible. I do, though, hope more than anything, if you've got your own answer to this topic, what is a game with excellent evocative environments, leave it in the comment. If it's something I haven't encountered, you could be teaching me something. And if it's something that I do know of, I might agree with you, or disagree. I don't know, we'll have a dialogue about it, but that's where these things get interesting. I do hope more than anything else, though, to see you again in another video, because I'm going to keep doing these throughout August. And I hope that you'll come and take a look at what I've got for you. Might be something new, might be something interesting. We'll see. But I hope that between that time and now, that you, yes, you, get a chance to play some games, to have some fun, roll those dice, and stay safe out there, my friends. Until that next time, farewell.